Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to decode some of the most important protections guaranteed by the Indian Constitution. Think of them as your personal, evolving shield. Let's jump right in. So what are these rules, really? We're about to explore how they're not just some dry text in a book, but actually a living, breathing shield that protects every single one of us against the power of the state. All right, first up, let's talk about what happens if you're ever accused of a crime. This is where Article 20 comes in, and believe me, it's your critical first line of defense. You know, what's so powerful about Article 20? It's just how wide a net it casts. This isn't just for Indian citizens. Nope. It protects foreigners, even companies, from unfair punishment. It's got these three core parts, and each one is designed to stop injustice in its tracks.
So, think of it like this, right? These are the three golden rules for a fair fight. Rule 1, they can't punish you for something that was actually legal when you did it. Rule 2, no double jeopardy. You can't be prosecuted and punished for the very same crime twice. And Rule 3, you have the right to remain silent. You can't be forced to be a witness against yourself. These are absolutely crucial checks on state power.
Okay, now we get to the real heart of our story today. Let's dive into the incredible journey of the right to life, which is Article 21. Honestly, this one article has probably changed and grown more than any other. At first glance, this sentence seems pretty simple, right? Procedure established by law. But wow, the meaning of those four little words has been fought over in court for decades, and its interpretation has completely transformed over time. And this is where things get really interesting. See, back in 1950, in the Gopalan case, the court took a really narrow view. They basically said, hey, as long as a law exists, the government can limit your freedom. But then came the Menaka Gandhi case in 1978, and it just blew that old idea out of the water. The court said, nope, not good enough. The law itself has to be fair, reasonable, and just. And that changed everything. The domino effect from that one ruling was just massive. The Supreme Court started to see life as not just, breathing. It meant living with human dignity. And that single idea cracked open Article 21 to include all these rights that aren't even written down in the text, like your right to privacy or your right to marry whoever you choose. And this evolution, this whole concept that a dignified life needs some basic building blocks, well, it led directly to something brand new. A whole new fundamental right was born from it, Article 21A. And the logic here is just crystal clear, isn't it? I mean, how can you live a life of dignity in today's world without a basic education? It's pretty much impossible. So the Constitution was actually amended to make elementary education an enforceable fundamental right for kids, to make sure that foundation is always there. All right, let's switch gears a bit. We've talked about life and liberty, but what about when you're arrested or detained? Let's see how the Constitution builds another layer of that shield with Article 22. Okay, so Article 22 deals with two very different kinds of detention. First, you've got punitive detention. That's the one we all know, getting punished after you've been tried and convicted. But then there's preventative detention. This one is way more controversial. It's about detaining someone without a trial to stop them from possibly committing a crime. And as you can imagine, the rules are different for each. So for a regular arrest under ordinary law, you have some immediate, rock-solid rights. You have the right to know why you're being arrested. You have the right to be in front of a magistrate within 24 hours. And you have the right to a lawyer. These are non-negotiable. But, and this is a big but, these specific protections don't apply to enemy aliens or people held under those preventative detention laws we just mentioned. Okay, moving on. Let's look at how the Constitution takes on some really deep-rooted problems in society. Articles 23 and 24 are all about protecting the most vulnerable people from being exploited. Article 23 goes right after the absolutely horrific crime of human trafficking. And what's so important here is that this isn't just a rule for the government. It protects you from private individuals too. It makes buying and selling people a crime, plain and simple. It also specifically calls out and bans practices like begar, which is basically forcing someone to work against their will, often for no pay. This and any kind of bonded labor is completely outlawed. It's a direct attack on those old, feudal, exploitative systems. And then, to give special protection to children, you have Article 24. This isn't about regulation. It's an absolute total ban. No child under the age of 14 can be employed in a factory, a mine, or any other dangerous job. It's there to protect their childhood.
So that's a lot of theory, right? But how does this stuff actually show up in the real world? Or, say, in a really high-stakes exam? Let's put our knowledge to the test.
Okay, check this out. This is a real question from a 2021 civil service exam. The right to privacy is protected under which article? Now, think back to what we just talked about, that expanding idea of the right to life. Which article was that?
You got it. The answer is Article 21.
This is a perfect example of how that broad post-Menaka Gandhi interpretation is so important. The court decided that privacy is a core part of living a dignified life, so it falls under Article 21.
All right, let's do one more. This one's from 2019. Which article protects the right to marry the person of one's choice? Again, this is all about personal liberty and that wider scope we discussed. And yep, you guessed it again. It's Article 21. It just goes to show you how massive and foundational this one single article has become for protecting the most personal choices we make in our own lives.
So, as we've seen, these rights are like this multi-layered shield. They protect us from unfair punishment, they guarantee a life with real dignity, and they guard us against exploitation. Just understanding them is the first crucial step. But making sure that shield stays strong, that it never weakens, well, that's a constant duty for every citizen and for our courts.